Hey everyone, this is your stimulus check update, second stimulus check update, and stimulus package update for Wednesday, December 9th. Last week, there was a $908 billion stimulus proposal that came out. However, that stimulus deal did not include stimulus checks. Well, earlier in the week, CNN's Jake Tapper interviewed Bernie Sanders, and they talked about stimulus checks as part of the next stimulus deal, as well as the failing of a stimulus deal to get done before the election. And we're going to talk about what they said regarding stimulus checks and regarding the previous stimulus proposal failures. In addition to this, yesterday, the Trump administration came out with their own stimulus proposal that was about $916 billion that included stimulus checks in exchange for lowering of the unemployment benefits. Those are the things we're going to talk about in this video today. Make sure you stick around till the end so that you don't miss anything that we talk about regarding stimulus checks and the stimulus negotiations. I hope you're having a great week so far, and I want to welcome back those subscribed members of my channel. Thank you once again for watching. For those of you that haven't subscribed, my name is Justin, and I do stimulus check updates as well as talk about Social Security benefits, as well as teach you how to save money, make money, and improve your net worth. So if any of those topics interest you, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified each and every time I upload a new video. And if you find this content helpful, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button so that YouTube will share this video with others like you. So let's recap where we're at with stimulus negotiations. As we've talked about in previous videos, last week there was a $908 billion stimulus proposal. That proposal included $300 billion for small businesses through the PPP funding, $240 billion for state and local governments, $180 billion for unemployment benefits to the tune of $300 per week for unemployment benefits, as well as about $25 billion for rental assistance. However, that stimulus proposal did not include stimulus checks. Most Americans that are wondering about stimulus negotiations are wondering about stimulus checks, and that's the most important thing for them. While Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both came out in support of this relief bill being the starting point for negotiations, there are other senators that are in Washington that have not been as accepting of this bill because it didn't have stimulus checks. One of those prominent members of the Democratic Party is actually Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was on with Jake Tapper on CNN earlier in this week and talked about stimulus checks as well as this $908 billion stimulus proposal. He also talked about the failure to get a stimulus bill done before the election and actually placed the blame on the Democrats. During this interview with Jake Tapper, Bernie Sanders said, "What we need is a compromise. I know I can't get everything that I want, but this bill really is not a compromise." And he was referring to that $908 billion bill that was proposed last week. And when asked whether it was a mistake that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats did not approve or accept the $1.8 trillion bill that President Trump and his administration were offering back before the election, he said it was a mistake. And he said, quote, "That's right. That's what I'm saying." That bill, the $1.8 trillion proposal that President Trump had offered before the election, would have included stimulus checks. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders is not supporting this $908 billion deal. But Bernie Sanders also admitted that it was the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi that were holding up the stimulus talks before the election and actually were the ones that were responsible for not getting a deal done. This is pretty similar to what I was saying before the election when I was calling Nancy Pelosi as the one who wielded all the power in the stimulus negotiations. She kept asking for $2.2 trillion for her stimulus deal when President Trump came up to about $1.8 or $1.9 trillion and included stimulus checks in a proposal that was before the election. Nancy Pelosi has since come out and said that she supports this $908 billion stimulus proposal. So what happened between the $1.8 billion proposal that she rejected and the $908 billion proposal that she's on board with? Well, the biggest difference is the election happened, and she realizes that President Trump now has no benefit if something passes because the election's already over. It is interesting to hear Bernie Sanders call out the Democrat Party and basically saying that they were the ones that kept stimulus checks from going out before the election. Bernie Sanders also said regarding stimulus checks in this interview, We are, right now, in the worst economic shape since the Great Depression, and this proposal does not include that $1,200 direct payment per individual and $500 for kids that we desperately need in order to put working families back on their feet. It would be a real help. We don't have it, and I'm going to fight to see that we get that included. So he's basically saying, I'm going to keep fighting and fighting to get stimulus checks into the next stimulus relief bill. And that's welcome news for many people that I know watch my channel and wouldn't benefit from the unemployment benefit extension and wouldn't benefit from some of the other provisions that are in there, but would benefit from stimulus checks. However, Bernie Sanders isn't the only one that is calling for stimulus checks to be put in the next stimulus deal. The Trump administration actually came out with their own stimulus proposal. It hasn't gone public, but it's about $916 billion, and it did include stimulus checks. That stimulus plan would replace funding for federal unemployment benefits, and instead of about $180 billion for federal unemployment benefits, it would include about $40 billion for spending to extend current unemployment benefits, rather than giving an extra federal unemployment benefit. In exchange for those unemployment benefits, the Trump administration said that they would give about $600 for stimulus checks and $600 for children as well. So while that's not the $1,200 stimulus checks that we've previously received, it is better than the $908 billion stimulus proposal offered, which was $0 for stimulus checks. Those $600 stimulus checks seemingly would go out to those on Social Security, those on SSI, those on SSDI, and those on VA benefits that currently wouldn't benefit from unemployment benefit, like an unemployment benefit from the federal government. And according to someone in direct communication with President Trump, he still wants to give stimulus checks to the American people, and maybe even as much as $2,000. While that is probably not realistic and probably isn't going to happen, it does sound like President Trump is still on board with giving stimulus checks to individuals. However, much like previous attempts by President Trump, it was actually rejected, this latest proposal, by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who came out in a joint statement basically rejecting this proposal. Other leaders in Washington, however, are still calling for stimulus checks. One of those leaders is a senator from Missouri named Josh Hawley. Now, along with Bernie Sanders, Josh Hawley is calling for stimulus checks to be included in the next round of stimulus funding. Senator Hawley reiterated that any spending bill without stimulus checks doesn't make much sense when he said, "I see them saying things like, 'This is an emergency relief bill.' I don't know what's more of an emergency than working people and families who are having to get into food lines. I don't understand that logic at all." And I would agree with him. If you're going to give a stimulus deal or a stimulus relief package to the American people, and you're going to spend $900 billion, the least you can do is give out stimulus checks to individuals. Stimulus checks for all, just like the $1,200 that went out before, would cost about $300 billion. So a stimulus deal that costs $900 billion and does not include stimulus checks doesn't make sense at all to me, because there are millions of Americans that wouldn't benefit from the unemployment benefit extension, wouldn't directly benefit from small business funding, although I think small businesses probably also need funding, but these people would also not benefit directly from state and local government funding, but they would benefit from a $1,200 stimulus check or even a $600 stimulus check for individuals and $600 for their children. That's still better than nothing. We have heard that there will be more stimulus coming after the first of the year, once the new Congress is in session and we're no longer in a lame duck session of Congress. So I think if they can get some stimulus deal right now done and get a stimulus check out, there's still a potential for another stimulus check in the future, but they need to get stimulus checks out now. I've been reading the comments in my videos and it's terrible. It's terrible to see that people are afraid of being evicted. People are afraid of not having any money to give their kids anything for Christmas, and just they're basically struggling to get by. And it's terrible, and there's a lot of people out there that need a lot of help. It does sound like there are some people in Washington that are still fighting for stimulus checks. President Trump sounds like he's one of them. Bernie Sanders is one of them. Josh Hawley's one of them, and there's some others as well. I will continue to keep you up to date on all the latest stimulus news, stimulus check negotiations. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.